Hey everybody, it's Rebecca Johnson of Supergirl Radio. I'm just getting the live stream started here. I had myself muted, so hopefully all that is well and that people can hear me because I did unmute myself, but I realized it right before I hit the live button. So that's a lot of fun. But if you do have any questions or comments, for me during this time before we officially get the episode going here. Feel free to drop that in the live chat. I do want to update everyone if this should pertain to you. This weekend, this upcoming weekend is Superman Celebration in Metropolis, Illinois. I will be there. Saturday only, though. Maybe some Sunday morning if I don't get what I intend to do video wise or podcasting wise or photography wise. I might go to the Superman statue and sort of the Main Street area there Sunday morning, but I'm hoping to get everything that I need to do for Supergirl Radio finished on Saturday. So if you're going to be around, Saturday's the best day. I will be going to the Tom Welling, Michael Rosenbaum program, whatever that is, on Saturday night. So I'll only be able to hang out until about 6 or so. So I'm planning to go back to the Super Museum. I'm planning to find the Supergirl Radio brick outside of the Superman Museum, or the Super Museum is the technical title. I plan on hopefully doing some man on the street style interviews with people. Hopefully I'll see Marin, the St. Louis Supergirl, again and get her thoughts on season 6 and how the show ended, and maybe see if she can explain the totem storyline to me, because I definitely could use some help with that. So we'll see if she has any thoughts regarding that. So I'm going to try to do a few things in Metropolis while I'm there this weekend. So if you are going to be in town, give me a shout. I'm hoping to meet up with a few other Supergirl Radio folks. So we'll see how that goes. I have some agenda items that I want to cover. Do some scavenger hunting for Supergirl merch, Supergirl action figures, those kinds of things. See what they have in Metropolis and see if we can find all the things that Rebecca needs to spend her money on, because I'm sure that I will be spending quite a bit in the Super Museum. They recently renovated something about the museum, and I think it was partially the gift shop. So I'm curious to see what the renovations will look like, because if you had been to the Super Museum in the past, the gift shop, especially during Superman Celebration, is very cramped. It's very difficult to walk through the aisles because there are so many people in there and it's so small. So I'm hoping that they were able to expand it a little bit, make it a little bigger, because that definitely was needed. And I learned a lesson last year at Superman Celebration that if I saw something that I wanted, I should get it immediately. No second guessing myself, because I saw a Jimmy Olsen figure that matched a Lois Lane and Perry White figure that I had, and I was like, oh, I'll come back if I can. I'm going to come back and pick this up. And I went back later and it was gone. So I'm not going to let that happen again. If there's something else that I see this year, this go around, I'm going to pick it up immediately, because man, people at Superman Celebration, they're fast. They I think it was like the next day. I went the next day and it was gone. Somebody bought it. So I am not going to let that happen this time. So we'll see how it goes. I plan on getting some Superman ice cream at Sissy Sweet Shop. Lynn and Nikki Workman were saying they were going to do their annual corn dog, which sounds really good. I think I'm going to try a corn dog this year. That's a really good idea. So there's some things going on. There's a science something or other that I think Dr. Nicole wants to try to attend. So we'll see if we can get some fun Supergirl Radio things, because next Tuesday we will do a Superman Celebration recap. I believe this is an anniversary for Superman Celebration, or at least Metropolis. So I'll be curious to see how they celebrate that. So stay tuned for next Tuesday. Maybe we'll try to have Dr. Nicole on and with Morgan and me, and we'll tell Morgan what we were up to and how much kryptonite we drank at Fat Ed's which should be a good time. All right, so I see Morgan down below. Are you there? Are you ready to go? Okay, just coming in.
I went into the StreamYard and I didn't see tonight's broadcast, and I went to several other broadcasts.
You had to load
there.
more.
I did not understand the load more. I didn't see it. I didn't acknowledge it until very late. So you can ignore a message to where me go. I should help.
I should have checked while I was on the live stream. No, I should have given you the warning because we're going to be taking a break here soon for Supergirl Radio. Morgan and I are going to take some time off because we don't have the built-in time off from the show anymore. So we have to create our own time off this go around. So we are going to be taking some time off. So I loaded up the StreamYard with all the things that we're going to be doing. And tonight's live stream was at the bottom. So I'm very sorry about that. I should have warned you that that's where to look because I had to find it myself. So I'm glad you were able to figure it out, and we are good to go. Do you have all the docs that I sent you? I sent you like 10 docs. Yeah. All right.
I am finding them now.
Okay. All right. Let me know when you're ready, and we'll get going. Let's see.
This one is Woman of Tomorrow. Okay, I'm good.
Okay. All right. So I guess we will go ahead and get started, and we'll get into this final issue of Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow.
Leslalar's downfall is just that eyebrow twitch that she can't help doing. Could you imagine if Hope was like, let's add that to the PowerPoint? Excuse
what
me?
Year is it?
How old am I? This is how the podcast breaks up.
This is the last episode of Supergirl Radio. You want a Kryptonian? You got one.
Is it a movie about saving Argo? The answer to that one is no. It's called Witch for a Summer! ! Where does she want to go? Ask her. Talk to her. Really commune with flat Supergirl.
Did we set the bar too high or too low?
I think we set the bar real medium.
You're doing an intensely adequate podcast.
Good.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Noyce, and you're listening to Supergirl Radio.
McGurk! I love typing.
Not mess with my Google Docs, Meeksy.
Supergirl Radio is going live every night of the week. How do you like it? Is becoming a human burrito a plus or a minus? I don't know. It does seem snug.
I mean, they say you are what you eat.
Kira.
I love that.
So I do a podcast called Supergirl Radio, and one of our segments is Lena Luthor, Boardroom or Ballroom. Because
she looks like a boss in this coat.
Nasty Luthor like a different Luthor? It's not just Lena being mean?
No.
Helen Slater here. So fun to know that you're hosting a podcast called Supergirl Radio.
Welcome to Supergirl Radio of Tomorrow, your source for Tom King's comic run on Supergirl titled Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. My name is Rebecca Johnson.
I'm Morgan Glennon.
And for this episode of the podcast, we are live and wired on the DCTV Podcast YouTube channel and the Supergirl Radio Facebook page to discuss and review the final issue of Tom King's run, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, number 8, which, of course, was written by Tom King, penciled and inked inked by Bilquis Evely. The colorist is Mateus Lopez, and Clayton Cowles is the letterer. And so we are going to be talking about this this final issue. This is going to be the last time we talk about this storyline. So we've gone on quite the journey, 8 issues in. So I'm excited to hear your thoughts, Morgan, on how it ended. But I guess before that, we do have some things that we need to talk about that are comic related. So we need to get to
the news.
DC Comics. Do you like my transitions?
It's great.
Random
it's
noises.
Musical. I like that.
Thank you. DC Comics has announced that a Dreamer graphic novel written by Nicole Maines with art by Rye Hickman will be coming in the future. A release date for the graphic novel has not yet been set, but it's coming in some sort of nebulous future period.
I don't think we have
I can't
time
wait
or
for
date.
the future. I saw this get announced and I was like, yes, I can't wait. And then I looked and I was like, did I miss when it's releasing in the announcement? I did not.
I don't think so. I think they just said it's a thing that's happening, but we don't know when it's happening. So I guess we just have to wait.
They're like, get hyped. And I'm like, I'm hyped. And it's like, cool. When is this? Just stay hyped.
For an unknown period of time.
Like, I'm tired. I can't be hyped forever, guys.
You only get so much energy.
I only have so much hype inside of me. Give us a date.
Morgan, I know you're a big Dreamer fan, so are you excited? You are hyped.
I'm
why
hyped.
why are you hyped for it?
Well, I love that it's written by Nicole Maines, and I know that she's a big comic fan after she got cast as Dreamer, and she's done her Dreamer homework. We had her on the show, and we talked to her one time, and she knew a ton of stuff about Dreamer. So I think with her own book that she could kind of write, I'd be interested where she would take the character. It sounds like it's a graphic novel, so it sounds like it's going to maybe release all at once, which is another reason I'm hyped, because I like things all at once.
A complete story.
A complete story. Also, because I tend to my issue with comics is not comics really, but it's the release schedule, in which I eventually halfway through forget about it, and then I never finish. There are so many comics that I have never finished, and so if you give me a graphic novel, I will read that. But if you're like, okay, we're 6 issues into a nebulous, I don't know how many issues it is. It's why I liked Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, because we knew it was 8 issues, and I was like, great, cool. At issue 7, I know I'm almost at the end. But a lot of comics are like, you're on issue 110. It's like, cool. And then if you say forget to catch up, and you realize you're perhaps several years behind, then you're like, wait, what issue did I stop reading at? And you don't remember. Don't remember.
I feel like Supergirl Radio is being called out, because that's what happened to us with Rebirth. We will finish Rebirth.
We're gonna do it. But the thing about us and how we read Rebirth is that is how I read all comics. Even ones I really like. There was a comic, I'm sure a lot of comic fans have heard of Saga, and it's an Image comic. And I was like, I loved it. I was really into it. And then I fell off. And then they took also several long breaks. But now I don't remember where I left off. So I'm going to have to start at the beginning again.
That's the worst.
And work my way through. So the point is, being presented a story in a graphic novel format where it's like, here it is. It's this. I mean, you just made my life easier. Thanks, Nicole.
And it's also a complete story. Sometimes with things like Rebirth, it sort of changed in the middle, and there'd be a different comic book writer, and so they would do a different thing with Supergirl, and the other story we were kind of getting into was changed, and it was something different, and it was very difficult to follow. So something like a complete graphic novel where you have a beginning, middle, and end, That's what I'm more interested in. And I hope that comics in general start going in this direction because, like you, like that's what I really liked about Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, even though I have a few qualms with the ending. But I like the overall concept of the story because it was a complete story. I didn't have to go fishing through Superman number 1324 and find that one section where Supergirl was mentioned. I can just go to this one book and read these 8 issues and I've got a story. So I think that's the benefit, in my personal opinion, for the graphic novel.
Yeah, I appreciate that as somebody who's old and tired so much more, because I just don't have the energy. There's so many things happening in the world,
Yeah.
that I don't have the energy to be like, okay, so this is where the book crossed over with the other book, so I need to dip into Superman, 510, and then back to the old title.
Yes.
Or else
Remember
I'm
when we
not.
get rebirth issues like mixed up?
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking. I remember it was like
we missed an issue or something.
as you could see in Superman 505, and I was like, what? We were supposed to read that? And it's my least favorite thing. I'm sure there are a lot of people who love that about comics, but it's my least favorite thing about comics because I just want to like start at the beginning and end at the end. And I don't want to have to be jumping around to other things in the middle because I don't like want to have to put that much time into finding things. Comics are confusing. And I think that's why people who start out like maybe see a movie, a DC movie or a Marvel movie, and they're like, great, I want to know more about like the Flash, like what I want to get a Flash book, I'm going to learn more about that fast guy, and then it turns out that there's just like 100,000 of them and they're all at different times and there's different timelines, and then I think a lot of people are just like, never mind.
And then you add in case of the Flash, time travel and multiverses, it gets a little confusing. Yeah, it's one thing, like, I don't mind paying for different issues, like, the jumping around is the bothersome part. I don't mind
Yes,
spending
yeah.
the money, I just don't want to have to go digging for something and miss, an important. Because with Rebirth, the frustrating thing was that if you didn't go read that Superman issue, you missed a whole big part of the storyline. It wasn't like a little cameo that Supergirl made
No.
it into the book. It was a big portion of the story.
It was
We were
a
like,
big
what happened?
thing. Yeah, I mean, we've got into old man yells at cloud territory about comics, but it is it's hard to keep track of. So I do really like, I remember I feel like it was not that long ago, but it actually was when Miss Marvel, which is actually coming out this week on Disney Plus. Disney Plus, we'll plug you if you give us money. It's like our good friend HBO Max. I don't care. I don't care who it is.
I was about to plug the Ewok films, but give me the
Yeah,
money
there you
first.
go. Yeah, I remember when Miss Marvel came out and it was kind of like a new take on the character, and I was like, great, I can start at number 1 and I'm good. And it was so easy for me to follow that because it wasn't like so much like the depth of stuff wasn't so much. And so I do kind of appreciate that about, if Dreamer at some point in the future gets an ongoing title, she doesn't have like 100 years of history that you have to dive into before you feel like you can read one of her books. As a completist, that's always been a problem for me. You can dive right in. It's a closed story, so I'm excited to see what Nicole's going to do with that avenue. And seems like she was excited about writing comics the last time she got to write one. And she just got to put Dreamer into a Superman boy.
I think that's coming up in July. It's Superman, Son of Kal-El. So if you're interested in checking that out, you might have to. I don't know what the storyline is. You might have to read all of Superman, Son of Kal-El in order to understand Dreamer's appearance. I don't know. I haven't read it yet, but that is the series in which she is appearing.
Yeah, so it seems like they're seeding her into that story, and then they're going to give her this sort of solo spin-off graphic novel, which I think is smart to kind of introduce her to the super universe, and then give her kind of her own little story. So I'm excited for what that story is going to be. We didn't get anything but cover art, and it's happening, not a date or a description or anything. So it's
Not a
not
title,
much
nothing.
not much to be excited about yet, but I'm excited by the mere presence of its existence.
Yeah, Mara in the chat says this is why I love trade paperbacks. It's all together, and that's
Oh,
I think all
trade
comics,
paperbacks.
honestly, I think all comics should be at least trade paperbacks. What I understand about trade paperbacks is like they put all of those issues, like the Supergirl issues, and then the issues where she's in the Superman
Yes,
issues. They put
yes.
all of that together, so it's kind of there for your so you don't have to go digging around. You can just read
Mhm.
it in this one big thing. Graphic novels are a different thing because I think it's more of a complete story.
Story,
It's
yeah.
like its own standalone thing. So I think they should at least always be trade paperbacks, but preferably graphic novels, in my opinion.
Yeah, I love the trade paperbacks. I know that like for the series, it helps to subscribe, like get them issue by issue, because that helps like the comic book stores and
Right.
the DC and Marvel see that there's interest in the story, so that they continue it. So I do understand, but like I just like trades so much better. Like I just want to wait until the end, like the end, or what, there's at least a collection of them, and I just want to read it that way.
Yeah, for me, it was so much easier. I know we talk about the Peter David run on the podcast all the time, and Morgan's never read it, but
I'm excited.
the Peter David run was so much easier for me to read as a collection of issues. So sometimes that does make a big difference. So I guess we'll have to wait and hear more about the Dreamer graphic novel that is coming sometime in the near future at some point in time. So I guess since we don't really have much more to talk about with that, I guess we should get to the comic book review of the final issue of Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, which is number 8. The description of this issue. Let me pull up the cover so that you can see it while I'm talking about it. So this is the description for Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, number 8. It reads, quote, Kim's, that's a different character. Krim's fate revealed. As Supergirl continues her battle against the brigands, Ruthie squares off against this most vile villain in hopes of avenging her father and completing their mission. Will justice be served on both accounts, or will our heroes fail? You won't want to miss the thrilling conclusion of the acclaimed miniseries that has changed Kara Zor-El for good, unquote.
Dun,
so,
dun, dun.
So we have gotten the conclusion to this this epic Western, this comic book Western that Supergirl has been in for 8 issues. So there's one part of the issue that I really think is maybe the most important part in my opinion anyway. Morgan, I'll
Sure,
have to
yeah.
ask you about this, but on a Supergirl Radio standpoint,
Yes.
I feel like this is the first thing that we need to talk about, which is
Sure.
I don't know, the apparent death of Comet the Super Horse. I don't know what your thoughts on that, and we got an answer to a question that we had about how Comet was portrayed in this series. Was he just a horse, or was he a horseman? So lots of questions about Comet that I want to ask you, Morgan. So you just go where you feel like you need to go with thoughts about Comet.
First, I want to point out that I'm wearing black. That wasn't a coincidence. I am in mourning. I am in mourning for Comet. How dare Tom King? Tom King, how dare you? How very dare you kill off Comet when we were just starting to get to know that great horse. Such a majestic steed. Taken at the prime of his life. I have to be honest, I didn't like them killing Comet. But also, and I have to say, maybe I was tired when I read it, I had to go back like 3 times to be like, did Comet just die? And it just, I don't know if it was the visuals or what, but it wasn't very clear to me what was happening. And then like suddenly it seemed like something bad was happening to Comet, and I was like, excuse me? But I did have to go back a couple of times before I figured out that Comet had gotten shot with the one kryptonite bullet that they had,
Right.
that they hadn't, they used all these kryptonite chains, but they had thought to only save enough for one bullet, which is convenient for everyone but Comet. But yeah, I will say, like, my one criticism, I guess, I feel like my biggest criticism of this series, which sounds insane, is the Comet thing. And it was like, obviously this is like a big moment, Comet dying, and I had a hard time following it. So I had to, like, reread it a couple times. And so I think that did kind of undercut the drama, the tragedy of Comet's end, because I had to be like, wait, hold on. Well, now he's turning into a person. So what does that mean? Oh, now he's dead. Okay. And then, like, going back.
Yeah. First of all, I think, Morgan, your internet may be going. I don't know if it's my internet. Am I coming in okay?
I can hear you, but
Okay.
I see some internet issues.
Okay.
Like 1 bar. How is
Okay.
it now?
It's better now. I just wanted to let you know. Okay. Yeah, the Comet death I actually really liked. I think that was, for me, the strong point of this issue, because we got the answer that he was a man horse. So that was a big reveal, because as he's going to save Supergirl on location 5 in the issue, we see he turns into a beautiful, beautiful man horse. And so
So beautiful.
he's so handsome. And there's a little bit of a reveal, I thought. Maybe this is just how I interpreted it, but when Supergirl brings his body back to the beach where Krim and Ruthie are, she says, he was a man, talking about Comet. He was cursed to be in the body of a horse. And she says, it's complicated. He didn't like to tell people about it. He told me because he loved ... And so the insinuation, I think, is that Comet loved Kara, loved Supergirl. And then so it's a little bit of a tragic romantic tale here in this moment, that they could have possibly had a great romantic storyline, but his life was cut short because he saved Kara. And so I like that. I was like, I love this part of the issue. This is wonderful.
They could have had it all.
They could have had it all, except for the brigand. So very upsetting.
And the horse aspect of it,
well,
was also a little bit of a
curse,
wrench.
the curse to be a horse, yes.
Yeah.
But I thought that was such a nice moment, that she recognized that maybe, and not to say that Supergirl returned those feelings, but she recognized that at least Comet felt that way about her. And so I thought that was really nice. So it gave the insinuation that there was maybe something more going on there, that they had a past. And I liked that. I liked that it was sort of throwing back to the old Silver Age stories, and developing that here in this one without having to do a lot of work in terms of the writing. So I really liked the Comet thing. The dog did not die, but the horse did. So
that was a twist I didn't see coming. I was so worried about Crypto.
Yeah.
I never saw Comet coming.
Yeah.
The tragic end of Comet. I mean, I did like that we got the confirmation that he was a horseman, or perhaps a man horse. It's hard to know.
I think he started out as horse. No, he started out as man.
He started out as
and
man.
then was cursed to be horse. So maybe man horse.
Yeah. Or if we wanted to get technical, he was a man horse man. Because at the end he was a man again.
Yes.
He sort of went through the full life cycle, if you will. Starting as man, middle as horse, ending as man. But yeah, I did like that confirmation, because it does kind of throw Comet back to those crazy Silver Age stories, but in a more grounded way. And I was mourning, I was crying, I was so upset, but I also did laugh when she was like, I don't want to talk about my man horse boyfriend, it's complicated. I was like, yes, it's very complicated.
Maybe this is hyperbole, but I think this is going to go down as like one of the great Comet the Super Horse stories in comics. If somebody, and we need to do a Comet the Super Horse character spotlight at some point, and I think this is the one that would probably rise to the top of recommendations for Comet the Super Horse stories. So if people are excited about the Super Pets and have questions about Comet the Super Horse, point them to Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. There's some really good Comet stuff here. Real tragic ending for him, but a very heroic ending, I think.
He was a good horse.
Yes, he was good.
You don't
loyal
as a
steed.
Man, we're not sure, but as a horse, top notch.
He could have been a real jerk.
He could have been kind of the worst as a man, but as a horse, majestic. Comet, we will never forget you. I hope they bring Comet back in a future Supergirl run. I just enjoyed seeing Comet so much.
And I think he works in this series because it is basically like a space western.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
So westerns typically have a lot of horses in them. So why wouldn't Comet be here?
What are you going to do? You're going to leave the horse out of the space western? No. No, she's got a horse. You knew he was coming in at some point.
Yeah, so I just want to thank Tom King for embracing the crazy parts of Supergirl mythology and really making it serious and meaningful. Because Comet the Super Horse is normally kind of a wacky and probably rightfully so, a wacky character. But here I thought he got a really good ending that made me feel things when Comet died. I was very upset about it. So there is that. There's a lot of death though in this issue.
Yes.
Lots of things happening and people do die here in Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow number 8. So the next big thing I think that we have to talk about is kind of the way the series ends, the way this issue particularly ends. Well, I guess before we do that, do you want to get to Mara's question?
Yeah, I just as we're wrapping on Comet, Mara does ask, do they say why he was cursed to be a horseman?
Not in Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow number 8, but you can find that out in, I don't know the specific issue right off the top of my head, but it is in the Silver Age when they first introduced Comet the Super Horse. So we'll be talking about the Super Pets in a couple of weeks. So I'll probably bring the first appearance of Comet the Super Horse to the table so we can learn about Comet's first appearance and maybe some of the way he is cursed through the magic. So we don't get it here in Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, but there are many variations on how Comet becomes a horse in the comics. All right, so now let's just really get to the thing that I'm very curious to know more about your thoughts on, Morgan. So at the end of this issue, Krim of the Yellow Hills, they spare him at one point. Supergirl and Ruthie spare him, but he ends up dead at the end. So Morgan, I'm curious, what did you think about how Krim of the Yellow Hills was taken out in this series?
So that's so funny because I didn't think that he was dead in the end.
Really?
So yeah. So
I'm interested in your thoughts. So make your case.
Yeah. Okay. Because I'm interested in your take too. So at the end of the series, we find out that Krim had been sent to the Phantom Zone.
Correct.
Where he had spent several hundred years learning to get in touch with his feelings and to sort of work through, all of his emotions and his anger. And he did like a lot of work with his, I'm assuming, Phantom, a psychiatrist.
Yes.
I want to say straight out that the Phantom Zone as an institution did not seem to me, based on my previous experience with it, to be a rehabilitation.
No, it's supposed to be a punishment. Yes.
Seemed more like, just an empty wasteland with like one building. Nobody can explain how it got put up.
And they have a lot of cubby holes.
And as Prison Mike says on The Office, the worst part of prison is the Dementors.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's I was I was surprised by this take on the Phantom Zone, where like you could toss someone into the Phantom Zone and like finally they got the mental help the mental health help that they needed this whole time, and got to really like get to the root of their problems through like, years and years of intensive therapy, and finally come out a better person. Now, that's a great Phantom Zone. For a comic book, I mean, you throw a villain in there and then they come out nicer and then they can't use the villain again. But
Well, the Phantom Zone is sometimes just portrayed as a prison. So if you
Okay.
think about it in terms of our prison system, a criminal might go to prison and reform while they are in prison, and they come out, better than they went in. So I guess if if I were to think about it like that, I can justify how Krim came out sort of repenting for what he had done.
I mean, I hope that they're investing in the Phantom Zone, in the rehabilitation aspect of the Phantom Zone, getting those budget dollars in there to, to really rehabilitate. Maybe they're not doing that because maybe that's why it took them like 300 years.
Yeah.
Okay, putting
did
those
take
together.
some time,
Okay, it
yeah.
took a long time because they're clearly not investing where they should be in the Phantom Zone.
Mhm.
But okay, so he finally gets out 300 years later. He's an old guy. Ruthie's an old lady.
Yeah.
He tells Ruthie that he's really, really, really sorry about what he did, and he's like honestly repentant. And then Ruthie, from what I can tell, just smacks him with her cane in the face, and then
Right.
they walk away. And I don't think that they killed him though, because I think you see her smack him in silhouette, and then you see him go down, and then in the next to last panel, he has his like hand on his head.
Okay, but what about the dialogue though? It says in what I only assume is still the Ruthie narration. It says instead she moved her sword swiftly through the air and stabbed down and through the chest of the kneeling brigand.
So, from what I took about this is that Ruthie's book that she wrote about her time with Supergirl, after her time with Supergirl, in that book, she has Supergirl killing Krem, which takes all of the brigand, like basically put all the heat on Supergirl with the I can't say brigands.
Brigand is a hard
With
word,
the
yes.
brigands. And then and then this way, Ruthie didn't have to deal with them coming after her. They all went after Supergirl because they assumed Supergirl had killed Krem, when really they had just shoved him into the Phantom Zone.
Okay, that's a much better reading. Like that actually changes my thought on the ending to where I like that.
Okay, yeah.
The way I read it very straightforward, like Ruthie, because I had been so used to Ruthie telling the story as it was happening all the way through, I just assumed that Ruthie was giving us what happened, which was strange because she insinuates that Supergirl killed Krem, but you don't see it in the panels. So I was very
Yeah.
confused about that. So I came into this live stream like, I didn't like this. I feel like it betrayed Supergirl's set of morals. Like I was prepared for Supergirl to kill Krem because that's what we were told early in the series. But right before these series of panels where it's Ruthie, like old Ruthie and Supergirl and Crypto in silhouette with old Krem,
Yeah, I can.
Supergirl is very merciful to and with him. She says things like, you served your time, you worked on your soul, your home, and you are free. And so that's why I had this tough time reconciling the fact that Supergirl had let him go and showed him mercy. And then there's this
Had him
voiceover.
reform and then killed
And then
him.
there's this voiceover that's like, she stabbed him a whole bunch of times. And I was like, what is that? Why?
Wait, what?
And then to my reading, it like made all of everything that came before it meaningless. Because if Supergirl kills him after all of that, because there's a whole big scene when after Comet dies, like Ruthie's ready to kill Krem. She's ready to just like take him out, and Supergirl stops her, and they have this whole talk about how this whole story is Supergirl trying to teach Ruthie that killing Krim is not the answer. And so then when I get to the end and it's like Supergirl killed him with a whole bunch of stab wounds, I was like, what? I don't
And then
understand
at the
this.
end, Supergirl just did it anyway, because LOL. That would have been like such a dark ending. Like, I threw you in the Phantom Zone. I let you see the error of your ways. I brought you back. You did a great job. Then I killed you.
That's why I was so confused, and I almost got a little bit mad about it because I've enjoyed the series so much.
If I thought that was okay. So I'm gonna read you what clued me off. So Supergirl says, "I liked your book," and then Ruthie says, "Oh, that fictitious fiddle faddle. I'm sorry you had to waste your time on it. I don't know why I wrote the, tome in the first place. I should have told what really happened if I had any guts at all. You think I'm scared of a brigand at my age? Let them come now and I'll show them a whipping worthy of their cursed ways." And then so that's basically what I took from it, is that like she said that Supergirl killed Krem so that the brigands
Wouldn't come for them.
Yeah. So Supergirl says, you made sure he'd stay locked up. You let me take the burden of their vengeance. You made a promise and you kept it. I appreciate it.
Okay, that makes sense, and it makes for a better ending.
To be fair, it wasn't super clear though. I had to reread that
because the narration was in the exact same color as the other narrations. And so I think if they had made like the book narration like a different color or a different font or something, that would have helped clue me in it and prevent like my blood pressure from rising.
So there's another tell, which I realized like after I read it and I had to read, which is that at the end of that beach scene when Supergirl is like thinking about killing Krem because he killed Comet, or he helped kill Comet.
I mean, I would have been all for vengeance.
Listen,
from the death of Comet.
Vengeance,
he deserved it.
He did deserve it. But at the end of that scene, when Ruthie like grabs the sword, Supergirl says it's too big and we're too small. And then at the end, when they're talking to Krem on the hill, and it goes back into that narration, it starts with her saying it's too big and we're too small.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But to be fair, like I had to reread parts of this because I wanted to make sure I was getting it correct. Like, I don't think it was clear at all, by the way. Like it's kind of a miracle that I didn't understand a horse getting shot by a bullet, but somehow that I got put together.
See, this is why it's good to talk about it, because like you might pick up something that I don't, and I might pick up something you don't. So I think Mark that makes sense.
Yeah, Mark says in the comments, that was my realization at the end. The captions were actually from Ruthie's book. So
that makes sense to me, because once it mentioned the comic book, mentioned that she had written a book, I had that same thought too. But for some reason, I just still thought at the end, like that was the straight thing that happened. So I think if you think about it now, or at least I can't speak for everybody else. I should only speak for myself. If I think about it now in terms of the narration being all from Ruthie's book, and that's her telling of the story, that makes sense. So yeah. I think having this discussion has really saved the series for me. So I'm glad to work through that.
I had to look at the panels where Ruthie like hits Krem in the face with her cane like a couple of times to make sure she didn't like just kill him at the end as well. So
it does sort of seem like she could have, because it looks her cane looks a little sharp, and it looks like maybe there's some blood that comes out of it.
Blood,
but you know, maybe she broke a nose or something. But it doesn't mean
I think she just messed him up just based on the panel where he's like with his hand on his head. But yeah, to be fair, like I've really enjoyed this run the whole way through, and I do feel like this issue was a little bit unclear in, you know, just how it was laid out, that it made us sort of questions a couple of things, and like it made you like, you kind of
I was ready to come in hot.
Yeah, you didn't like you didn't get like what he was trying to say about the ending at all, and I think that was a failure of making it clear. I think it like a good story is a clear story, is a story that the audience can like readily understand. And so if there's big if there's big points where people can kind of misunderstand things, I think that is an issue with the narration. That's like an issue with the narrative.
I think it could have maybe been a little, but also that's also on me though, because you brought up some things about how the narration connected to what Supergirl said, and we know that the narration in the yellow has always been Ruthie's narration in some form. And to Mark's point, the narration was throughout the whole thing, and then we realize that it's probably the book. So I, as a reader, that's on me to connect all those dots, and I just didn't. I just read it on a very superficial level. So I don't blame Tom King totally for that. I think some of that is on me as a reading comprehension issue. But because you obviously got there, like you had no problem with that, but I did. So I think that's more on me than anyone else.
So Kenny in the comments says, just to give you a little bit of a breathing room, Tom King's endings, Kenny says, are never that clear in his books. He says some of Tom King's books, like Vision, his Batman run, have had kind of similar issues. So possibly this is a reoccurring thing. But yeah, I wouldn't say that the first time through this issue, I did have to go back a couple of times. And I think that's maybe why I put it together, because I was like, wait, did the horse die? Wait, what am I reading? What am I reading? Like, what is this jump from, I think I got a little thrown off from the jump from Ruthie grabbing Supergirl's hand with the sword to like old Ruthie,
right,
and Supergirl in the future. So I like went back and forth to be like, oh, okay, we did a time jump. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
So I do think that, it's not a problem to have something that you need to like pay attention to, but at the same time, I shouldn't have to be doing so much back and forth as a reader. I should be able to get it like one read through. So I do think that this, like the narrative was a little bit confusing in this one. Like I like where we ended up ultimately with the story. But I kind of wish that the tricks that threw you off, I don't think that they added a ton to it, honestly.
Well, I'm kind of the opposite of you. But I can understand maybe why you would want one read and understand it. But I'm a person who like loves watching Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice 20 times because I pick up something on each viewing. So I like it when there's layers to something that I have to reread and find as I go along. It makes the experience for me so much more fun if I have to pick up those things for myself. I'm just mad at myself that I didn't connect those dots.
No, I think I like rereading things, and I like when stories are layered and you get something on like the second read or the third read that you didn't get in the first. I just think that you should be able to get all of the relevant information in the first read.
Yeah,
and like
Supergirl killing somebody is a pretty big thing. Like,
exactly.
How many people were like me and read that as, well, Supergirl stabbed a man to death? Like, how many people took that away with them?
I also think that like the visuals in combination with the words made it confusing, because the words are saying like Supergirl, killed this guy, and then the visuals are like happening. Far away in shadow, something is happening to the guy at that very point. Like Ruthie's hitting him. Supergirl is standing over top of his like now downed body. Like it is kind of easy to misinterpret that and be like, wait, what? So I just think that like this is, for the whole run, the visuals and the words have been such a beautiful combination. And this is one where I think the visuals and the words both like combined to make it confusing.
Or are they actually helping each other because it's so jarring that you have to wonder why those words are saying what they are? Because that was my confusion. I was like, the visuals and what they're telling me don't line up. So I'm having to depend on the words to understand the ending. Even if the visual doesn't match up, I'm just going by what the text is saying.
Ah, okay.
But maybe that's supposed to be, maybe it was trying to be a signal to say, this is an unreliable narrator of sorts. Like, what you're seeing is not what was happening. Like, I don't know, maybe there's two sides to that maybe they actually work together to show you, hey, like, this is actually Ruthie's narration. I don't know.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see, and when I realized that, like, where the main story, the Ruthie and Supergirl body cop comedy team, where that cut off, and then at the end on that last panel that it picked back up right at that point, that I thought was a really neat way of them saying, like, this is the book, like, this is the book that Ruthie wrote. And it also does, like, retroactively make it, some of those some of Ruthie's narration has been verbose, a little wordy, a little bit of a gilding of that lily. And the fact that it is her, like, her novelization essentially of her time hanging out with Supergirl does make all of that make sense. Like, oh yeah, okay. So it is a little bit, it is a little bit over and above in terms of drama, but she's writing a book, man. She's got to hook an
She
audience.
gotta, make it dramatic. And although now I'm starting to question, did the dinosaur pond, was that real? Did that really happen? Did everything happen? She just sort of
She's an
embellished it?
unreliable narrator, right? Like, she is we know that she lied about what happened ultimately to Krem in her novel, because in her
Mm.
novel, Supergirl
Well,
kills him.
yeah, she's
But
trying. I would like to believe that everything before that happened. They went through this whole journey together, but just that one part, because they didn't want to have those bad guys come after them, was a protection of the innocent.
I like to think that she made herself a little cooler sometimes. Like, she's like, I really took that dinosaur down. I fist fought a dinosaur and I won. Because I feel like that's like what I would do in a similar situation. Is that
Supergirl couldn't do it, but I could do it.
it's like, oh, I managed to miraculously survive from a dinosaur attack, and I would be like, I looked that dinosaur in the face, and I punched him in the nose, and he cried. So I do like to think that, like, maybe some of Ruthie's heroics, maybe it turns out, were a little bit a little bit enhanced. But I don't think that she would have had to do that for Supergirl, because Supergirl's just Supergirl. But I think it's safe to assume that, like, most of the narration of the series is accurate, with the ending being, the one thing that she did switch.
Yeah, Mark says, I think the visuals are true and the captions are less reliable. That's a good way to
Ooh,
look
I
at
like
it.
that. Yeah. Well, what I really like about this ending, because we were talking about it being, like, a little bit unclear, and you were defending it, actually. I was like, it should have been clearer, but
I mean, just because I didn't get it doesn't mean that, like, you didn't get it. So it's on me. I take that on me.
But what I like is that it recontextualizes the series. And so, to your point about liking to reread things and find new bits in them every time, I do feel like now this is a series that I can go back to in maybe a couple months and reread it and have a completely different relationship with the narrative than I did the first time around, because it does really change how I look at the book, because it's not just narration. This is a book that she's writing, and this is, like, how she's talking to other people about Supergirl. And I think that that's really interesting.
Well, I feel so embarrassed. This was my second time reading this, and I still missed it. So I think now, having had this discussion and thinking through it a little more, now if I reread it, I think I would have much more of an appreciation. We have a listener feedback email that talks about something that was caught in issue number 4 that could have also been a hint. So we'll talk about in the listener feedback section. So yeah, so I'm
Speaking of
just
listener feedback, I would love it. I would love if, like, listeners who read this previous to us talking about it, or even were reading along with us, if they also had an issue with the ending, if they also were thrown off a little bit by it, because I mean, I think that's I could completely understand how you got to where you were with it, where what you thought. And I think it would be like it might be a common, misread maybe the first time around, in fact. So
Well, now I feel so bad for Tom King because when that first issue came out and the narration was like, and Supergirl killed a dude, everybody was like, "Rah! Supergirl doesn't kill, blah, blah, blah. Tom King doesn't know what he's doing." And so now having this insight into the ending where she showed him mercy and let him go, that's why I was like, I'm going to keep an open mind. I'm going to just read it and see what the story has to say about it. Cause I wasn't going to get like angry for no reason. And I think the people who did that obviously had some justifiable reaction to it. But I think if you want to read a story and kind of see where it's going, I think that's the better method of reading or watching or listening to something. If it's like an audio book or something, like just see how it plays out. Because I would have been okay for Supergirl to kill Krim if she was doing it in defense of Ruthie or in defense of some of the people who the brigands had messed with or killed. Like I would have been okay with Supergirl killing if it was in defense of someone. But here I didn't even have to deal with that. It's like she showed him mercy because he learned about his mistakes and regretted the things that he had done. And so I think that's a better choice for Supergirl. So I'm actually glad to have a different interpretation of the ending.
Yeah, I think if it had been the way you like your original interpretation, that would have been a bad ending.
I was originally kind of mad about it. So
I would have been really not just kind of. I would have been very mad about it. I would have been like, "Excuse me,"
because then I was trying to reconcile. Like, I really loved this series, but the ending was kind of eh. It was like I was like reliving the final episode of Seinfeld. I love the show. The final episode stunk, though. So I'm at least glad to know that the ending is a good payoff for the rest of the issues. Morgan, is there anything else in this particular issue that we didn't talk about that you wanted to?
I think we covered most of it. I did like seeing how Ruthie had aged so much, and she like still had her cool little hat that she likes, but but that Supergirl looked exactly the same, and so did Crypto. But that like to denote the passage of time, Supergirl had just gotten like a cute little bob,
and she has pants.
Oh yeah, I didn't. Oh my god, you just
and she has an enormous like belt buckle.
Yeah,
which seems like it would be uncomfortable.
She's like, I have really embraced pants and also this huge belt. Chunky belts and pants are like really she's kind of gone back to like an early 2000s aesthetic where chunky belts are all the rage. You just belt it. That's it. So slimming. Yeah, I didn't even notice the pants. That's so funny. I was just like, oh, look at her cute little haircut. Time has passed because her outfit is different. But it is really funny to see, obviously years and years and years have passed for Ruthie. Quite a long time. For Supergirl, she looks exactly the same. Crypto, still looking great.
Still being a dog with a cape.
I did like that twist where she was like, oh, Crypto was always fine. Oh, Crypto, I left him with the vet. The vet's taking good care of him. He's a good boy. What are you worried about? Ruthie's like, excuse me?
Well, and the nice payoff to that is Supergirl tells Ruthie that she did all of this to teach her a lesson about not wanting to kill someone. And Ruthie says on the beach that she learned it, which is also why I was so confused about my initial reading of the ending. Because I was like, but Ruthie learned the lesson and then they still killed him. Why
would you do this?
That makes no sense. So there is that. I did like on location 5, Ruthie refers to the ocean scene as a moral ocean. And I think we sort of talked about that in issue number 7 with the apple and everything like that. Like I think you even jokingly mentioned like a Temptation Island, like a reality TV show. But I think that was the intent of it, is that the ocean sequence where they have to make this big decision on whether or not to kill Krim is a moral quandary for them. And so having it referred to as a moral ocean, I thought was a really interesting choice of words.
I also liked that the whole story is essentially Supergirl trying to teach Ruthie that she doesn't have to kill, that she can like let go of her anger. And then at the ultimate moment when it's time to do that, Supergirl is so angry that she has to be then talked down by Ruthie. So I liked that, the way that symmetry of their stories, that Supergirl is also just a person, and she had just lost somebody important to her, a very important horse,
who loved her,
who was a horse, a man, just a really great guy. May he rest in peace. But I did like that, there was that kind of like the mentor becomes the like the student becomes the teacher part of the story, where Ruthie then has to be like, no, I learned this lesson from you. We shouldn't we shouldn't do this. Like, you need to let go. And I thought that was really nice storytelling as well.
Yeah, I thought it was nice that they had gone on this big journey together, and that they were able to bring each other back from the brink. So I think that's a nice touch, and a good way to end it, now that I have some concept of how the ending actually works. And speaking of that, I really liked how Ruthie talked about, this is the quote from the issue: "The legend of Supergirl who lost everything and kept on walking," unquote, because that had been something that was mentioned in a previous issue, where the phrase "kept on walking" was repeated. And now I sort of think that the repetition of some of those things, because we talked about several of the phrases in the story were repeated and used over and over again, which makes sense if you're writing a story. If you're writing a book, you would have repetition of themes working through your book. So now that things are clicking for me as I think about it. So, because I thought it was a little bit strange that they had repeated things in the dialogue, but it makes sense in terms of writing a story in a book, that you would do something like that as a writer. So, but I like that idea of Supergirl, that she is a person of persistence and great fortitude, that she can continue walking even though she's seen horrible things and has experienced tragedy and sadness. She's able to keep going. So I like that was part of her legend, the legend of Supergirl. So I really liked that in the dialogue here. All right. Well, I guess shall we talk about the art? Did you have any favorite pages or panels in this one?
So many. I think that there are so many great panels and pages in this one. As always, the art in this is amazing. It was location 14 when Supergirl comes back down to Temptation Island with the body of Comet, not a horse, now a man, and sort of floating in the air with like all of her, like her cape shredded, and
Capes are tattered.
yeah, and Comet's cape is tattered and sort of draped around him. I thought that was a really great panel. And then there's also if my Comixology app will work, not always guaranteed. It is location, location 20, where we see little Ruthie once again back on her home planet from the beginning of the story. And I just thought it was such a pretty shot, like it's a TV show. Such a pretty panel with all of the colors in it, and her sadness, and kind of juxtaposing it against Supergirl trying to like come back from the edge, and Ruthie saying that it's, you have to, move on. I thought that was great. And then, like, I think one of the last ones I love is is the right before that on location 19, where we go back through all of the adventures that Supergirl and Ruthie had together and just get little snippets of each one of them. And I thought that was so nice. You know, you see her outrunning the magic on Comet. You see them on the planet with all the graves. You see Ruthie, you know, crying on Supergirl's shoulder. So I thought it was just like a really nice way to bring home, you know, how many different things that they had been through together, and how close that they had become.
Yeah, and those are all panels from each of the issues. So it's seven panels for each of the I'd have to go back and look for sure, but I think those are all like the top one is issue 1, the second one is issue 2, the third one is issue 3, etc. So I think that's really cool that the way they were able to depict those flashbacks and give us a little previously on in each panel. So yeah, that is a nice touch, and especially the images that were chosen for that, because I really took to the scene in issue number 2 when Supergirl teaches Ruthie how to like wash her hands. I thought that was a really emotional connection that they had there, and so I'm glad to see that that was the focal point of that issue. So it was all the things that sort of connected them, I think, in their experience and their adventure. So yeah, that's a really good page in those set of panels. There were some things for me that I just kind of enjoyed in terms of like a slow art reading of things. So if you don't know, slow art is the practice of looking at art for a lengthy period of time so that you can put yourself and like immerse yourself into the art. Sometimes I will do that as practice, and when I do that, I can start to hear things in my head, and my imagination comes to life. And so for me, that happened a couple of times in this issue for like location 4 and location 15. I could actually hear the waves crashing in some of these panels. The way the waves are drawn, where they're sort of kind of how would you describe this? Raised up, and it looks like they have like some motion to it.
Yeah.
So I think that contributed to my ability, especially on location 15, that top panel where the wave is crashing. I really liked that because it for me, seeing that put me in that location. It was almost like a movie, like I could insert myself into this movie that was happening on the beach. So I really like when art encourages me to do that. Let's see. We already talked about my other favorite location 14 with Comet's human form being carried down by Supergirl. Let's see. And I actually another example of the slow art immersion on location 10 when Krim gets his fingers cut off. I actually felt that pain. Like like when I was reading that, I was like, "Oh, that would be horrible if that happened to me." So so the way it was drawn was really dramatic. It really I felt that intensity of that moment when Ruthie took his fingers off with the sword. So I really liked that. It was another sort of tangible moment for me. And the only other thing that I would mention is location 21. I think we already sort of briefly talked about it when Ruthie reaches for the sword that's in Supergirl's hand. It's part of the page. It's not exactly, I guess it's its own panel. But it's interwoven with these other panels that are on that page. But that one sticks out to me a lot, especially given the fact that they had already in issue 2 showed the close-ups of the hands of the two of them. If I were to analyze that on a metaphorical level, I think it's interesting that Supergirl taught Ruthie how to wash her hands and clean herself. But here they were dealing with blood and death, possible death and vengeance. So it's there's a contrast there for me that I think is really interesting. So I guess those are all the things that I wanted to point out about the art. So I guess final thoughts about this series, Morgan. What did you think about Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow?
I just really liked it. I thought that the art was beautiful and the colors were beautiful. So even without a good story, I probably would have been a fan because the art is so good. But I did really like the story. I like that it centered Supergirl. I like that it was a story about her, but seen through somebody else's eyes. And I think that having that point of view character be somebody other than Supergirl, talking about what Supergirl meant to her, really did kind of bring home what a great character that Supergirl is, and some of the things that make Supergirl so great, including like, some of the trauma that she's experienced and how she's managed to, push past it and overcome, what a strong person she is, her empathy. I thought it was just overall, I really thought it was a great run. It also brought in super pets, but in a way that was, it not, I was going to say grounded, but that's not true. Um, but I think that there were stakes to the super pets. There were stakes to
Oh,
Comet.
yeah.
There were stakes to Crypto. They weren't goofy. But they were fun. And I thought that was really nice too, that like they didn't shy away from some of the weirder parts of Supergirl's comic backstory, but they kind of made them, part of the book in a way that made sense, and felt like it was written by somebody who likes Supergirl, which feels like a weird thing to say. But isn't
we
always
don't get that
guaranteed.
often.
It's not always guaranteed, right? Like Sterling Gates's run we really liked, and that was great. But
Yeah.
sometimes, you get a Supergirl story and it doesn't feel like the writer gets her or
Is interested.
is interested in her, or would have really rather been writing a Superman book, but like this is what's available. Um and in this case, I think that like he got what made Supergirl great. He liked Supergirl. Like that's what I got from this book. He like and when we talked to him, he said, part of what he wanted to do with writing this book was to get Supergirl out there again and to get people excited about more Supergirl stories. He was like, I don't want this to be the last Supergirl book for a while. I want there to be more. I want people to, demand more Supergirl and for there to be, something, coming right after this. So I think in that case, he did a really good job because I immediately wanted to read more Supergirl stories.
Yeah, this makes me wish all Supergirl comics were like this. I know that's not something that is probably going to happen in the future, but I think this series sets a really high bar for Supergirl comics, and I don't know if we're able, uh, if anything is going to be able to live up to this. But I think, but this sets a really high bar for Supergirl stories, and I hope that we get to see something like it in the future where it's a complete story that understands Supergirl and is interested. You don't even have to like Supergirl in my opinion. Just be interested in her as a character. And I think Tom King, one of the things that I now like about the ending of this story is that it shows that Supergirl was an inspirational figure. She taught Ruthie a lesson and inspired her in a way that Ruthie would not have had otherwise. And I think this shows that Supergirl, one of the characteristics that I love about Supergirl is that she is someone who can withstand a lot of terrible things that come her way and still be a hopeful figure because those tragic things play into why she still has hope. And I think the ending of this story exemplifies that in such a great way. So I love this series. I would recommend it to everyone. I hope I don't know if they're going to make a trade paperback of it, but I think they should if they haven't already.
So they are, because I've already pre-ordered it. It comes
Oh,
out in July.
okay. I'm
So I'm
gonna go do that right now.
Yeah, because it's so funny. I was telling Mike about it. I was like, "Oh, this run of Supergirl has been so good." And he's like, "Well, when you get the trade, I'll read it." And I was like, "Yes." And I think that it will, once it comes out in trade, I think it will gain like a second life, because I think to our point earlier and to my point forever complaining about this, it is easier to read when it's all collected in one place.
Yeah, I think that will be a good way to give it to somebody, if you want to give it as a gift or a present or a recommended reading to a friend, I think that's a great way to hand that to put it in someone's hand.
So I see Paula left a comment who said, and she says, I missed the beginning with the news, but have you seen that the new Justice League's Supergirl looks exactly like Kara at the end of number 8?
I have not seen that. We'll have to dig that up for maybe. I'm trying to think with all of our scheduling.
I
When is
know.
the next Superman celebration? We'll be gathered for that. So maybe I'll try to dig that up and we can talk about that in the next episode of Supergirl Radio. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe other writers took inspiration from this book. I also don't know. I think there was some question on whether or not Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow was somehow connected to Future State. Never got an answer to that. So who knows? So there's interesting questions there. So yeah, Paul, if you can send that to us, we'll check it out and see what's going on there. But yeah, so I think that people maybe possibly writing Supergirl from here on out may take some inspiration from this book because it has been so widely well received and it's nominated for awards now. So I think this is going to be seen, in my opinion, this should be seen as one of the great Supergirl stories.
I agree.
Okay. All right. So I guess we should get to, since we've talked about our thoughts, let's get into some listener feedback. So Morgan, if you don't mind taking that email, because you're a much better reader than I am. So will you get into Mark's email?
Sure. So Mark writes, now that you've read the final issue and seen that it wasn't crypto that Kara was trying to save, to borrow from the marvelous competition, it was Ruthie all along. I wanted to point out this panel from issue number 4, where Ruthie and Supergirl are arguing over whether the former would be allowed to view the annals of the brigandage. That's a real word. He says, Supergirl says, I'm trying to save someone. Tom King snuck in a clue right there. I have to say, once it sank in that Ruthie didn't kill Clem in the end, she just smacked him upside the head. I think Tom King really stuck the landing on this one. I thought it was a beautiful, meaningful story that really understood Supergirl and portrayed her in an excellent way. I've ordered 2 copies of the trade paperback and hope he'll get a sequel.
All right. How did I miss that there was going to be a trade paperback? Did we talk about that on the podcast? I feel like I should know this. But now that I know this.
I only know because as we were reading through it, I was like, and I was experiencing the glories of comicsology. I was like, there has to be a better way. Is there a trade out? And I saw that it wasn't out until July. And I was like, great.
Okay.
Which is the only reason I know.
But yeah, Mark makes a good point that there is a little bit of a dialogue hint there that Supergirl says, I'm trying to save someone. Then she says, I'm trying to save my dog.
Yeah.
But she could just be saying that to throw Ruthie off in order to save Ruthie from making a big mistake. So I appreciate that Mark went back and reread it and came away with something different. And thank you, Mark, for writing in and sharing that with us. I think that is probably going to be one of many things that I'm going to catch as I reread this story for a third time to try to get everything that Tom King put in there. Well, I think that's going to do it for our review and discussion about Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow number 8. If you haven't bought it yet, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow number 8 is available at your local comic book store, Amazon Kindle, Apple iBooks, Barnes & Noble, Nook, Comixology, Google Books, and Read DC. And before we get into some podcast plugs, we would like to plug an organization, a podcast hosting company that we have been using since 2015, and we like it a lot. And so if you are somebody who wants to start a podcast, we have information about an opportunity that's going to be offered until June 30th and how you can get involved. If you're looking to start a podcast, use Supergirl Radio's unique promo code SUPER to get up to 2 months of free podcasting service with Libsyn when you sign up for a new account. Get your show on Apple and Spotify. Get helpful audience building stats and all the support you need to sound your best. And hey, they can even do video. Bring your podcast to life and have your voice heard with Libsyn. Click on the link in the live stream video description or our audio podcast show notes. All right, now it is time to get into some Supergirl Radio and some DC TV podcast plugs. If you would like to contact Supergirl Radio, you can post a comment on our website at supergirlradio.com. You can email us at supergirlradio@gmail.com. If you'd like to leave us a voicemail, you can call us at 678-718-7252. You can like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram, all at Supergirl Radio. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Radio Public, Podchaser, and Spotify, where we also have a Spotify playlist that includes music featured on and inspired by the CW's Supergirl TV series. We are listed on DC's fan page, which you can find at dccomics.com/DC-fans. If you like what we do, we encourage you to give us a rating and write us a review on Apple Podcasts. If you enjoy our Supergirl Radio live streams, make sure to subscribe to the DC TV Podcast YouTube channel and hit that notification bell to get notified when we go live and wired. DC TV Podcast also has a TeePublic store, so if you're in need of new DC TV related t-shirts, tank tops, sweatshirts, onesies, mugs, notebooks, pillows, or stickers, go to supergirlradio.com and click on the TeePublic store link at the top of the page.
Supergirl Radio is part of the DC TV Podcast Network, so if you also like The Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, Black Lightning, Titans, Doom Patrol, Batwoman, Stargirl, Superman and Lois, and the upcoming Green Lantern, Justice League Dark, and Strange Adventure shows, and DC TV After Dark, you can subscribe to the DC TV Podcast Mega Feed on Apple Podcasts. Follow at DC TV Podcasts on Twitter, and like DC TV Podcasts on Facebook, or else. This has been a message from Hope, inhabiting the Flash vessel, also known as New Rachel.
And since we talked about comics this week, we have some super designs in the DC TV Podcast TeePublic store.
Yeah, since we covered a Supergirl comic run all the way through and congratulating ourselves in the process because we read a run and we finished it. Yes. So since this was all about Supergirl and how great Supergirl is, we just wanted to plug the Supergirl and the Kara designs that we have in the DC TV DC TV Podcast TeePublic store. That's a lot of words together. So we definitely have some Supergirl merch in there. So if you need some Supergirl items, mugs, t-shirts, hoodies, anything that you could possibly need, we have it in the store. So definitely go and check it out. And we'd like to thank our legion of super sponsors for supporting Supergirl Radio through the Supergirl Radio Patreon. These people are Michael, Sam, Anne Marie, Yvonne, Quinn, Nicola, Leslie, Abby, Irmgard, Miriam, Nicole, Lizeth, Faith, Brian, Ethan, and Danny. If you would like to become a Supergirl Radio Patreon supporter, or as we refer to them as the Legion of Super Sponsors, you can go to patreon.com/Supergirl Radio, and we have 4 tiers of monthly memberships, and that support helps us pay for things like Libsyn hosting fees. So we really appreciate everybody for supporting the podcast and helping us keep Supergirl Radio going, even when the CW TV series is off the air. We still like getting together and talking about Supergirl, even if we sometimes misunderstand the story. So thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. All right. Well, if you want to keep up with me, you can check me out on several different platforms. I'm on Vero at Derby Kid, where I show what I've been watching and reading. I think recently I posted about how I've started the Book of Boba Fett TV series. So I'm almost finished with that. I'm trying to catch up with all the new Disney Star Wars stuff. I've been watching Obi-Wan as well, but the Book of Boba Fett, I'm a little bit late on.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
Obi-Wan's
I'm now
been good so far.
Yeah. I was not crazy about the Disney Star Wars films. that sequel trilogy was
Yeah, but the shows
terrible.
are great.
But the TV show's knocking it out of the park. So I highly recommend both Obi-Wan and the Book of Boba Fett. So it's been really fun to watch those. Reignited my love of Star Wars. So that's quite the feat. But you can also find me on Instagram at the Derby Kid, where I share some pictures that I take occasionally. And I'm on YouTube. I have a personal YouTube channel, youtube.com/duckmilkprod, where I have been recently doing a big project where I read Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice reviews from the top critics of Rotten Tomatoes. They're all negative. They're all rotten reviews. And I probably could say that they're rotten reviews. They're meant to be rotten for the movie, but I think that they are actually rotten reviews as they are in terms of the actual reviews themselves. But if you would like to come and disagree with me about that, you certainly can. When I have those live streams, I actually read verbatim the reviews from the top critics. So just to be fair to them, I read them all the way through for proper context. So I'm still continuing that project. So if you want to join me and talk about art criticism, that's a good place to do that.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at Mojotastic. I'm also a co-host on the Legends of Tomorrow podcast, where we recently watched the Hulu rom-com Crush and talked about it. So if you've watched that movie, if you've been interested in watching that movie, it's a great time to listen to that podcast. Funny story about that is that I was just at a podcast live show this last weekend, seeing Welcome to Night Vale, and they had a opening act who had a song that was in that movie.
Oh,
The artist did, and it was so funny. They were like, "Oh yeah, you might have heard this song before in the Hulu film Crush," and I was like, "Oh my god!" The only one there, super hyped because I had just talked about it. And then we also we did recently a panel with Kat and Phil and Dan about the upcoming By Visibility comic book that yours truly has a story in, and that will be coming up later this month. So you're going to want to watch that space, the Legends of Tomorrow podcast space for that. And we're still kind of easing into our post Legends of Tomorrow reality. But I think we've got some good stuff coming up for the next couple months. So don't give up on us, you guys. Like, we're still here. We're still doing it.
the show might be canceled, but the podcast
But we're
isn't.
not.
And
We're
that's
sure
really
not.
the more important thing, is that the podcast is continuing on. But maybe that's just my personal opinion. So if you want more information about comic book writer Morgan Glennon, we may also have something from Supergirl Radio about that as well. I also should mention on the podcast, since this is going to be out before Superman Celebration 2022, if you're going to be in Metropolis, Illinois, give me a shout. I'll be there looking for the Supergirl Radio brick outside the Super Museum somewhere. I assume that they've put it down somewhere. So I'm going to try to find that. I'm also going to try to go to a Q&A with Jim Hambrick, who is the guy who collected all the stuff that's in the Super Museum. So I'm interested to see what he has to say. Maybe try to ask him some questions. And maybe try to do some man on the street interviews and document some adventures there. And we'll bring it back next week, and we'll talk about Superman Celebration and all the shenanigans that were afoot, including a Michael Rosenbaum, Tom Welling program of sorts. So I'm curious to see what that is about. We're not able we're not able to photograph or shoot any video of that. So it's I'm going to go and be present at that experience.
Ooh.
I'm not gonna, be worried about taking pictures the whole time. I can just go and experience it. So that'll be new and different for me. So I'll be there Saturday only. So if you're gonna be there, give me a shout. Maybe we can go drink some kryptonite together and eat some corn dogs and things like that. So if you are going to be in Metropolis, give me a shout. Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode of Supergirl Radio. But until next time, I'm still Rebecca Johnson.
And I'm still Morgan Glennon, and we hope that you will check out Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, and keep supporting Supergirl comics.
McGurk! I love
Not
typing.
mess with my Google Docs, Meeksy.
Supergirl Radio is going live every night of the week. How do you like it? Is becoming a human burrito a plus or a minus? I don't know. It does seem snug.
I mean, they say you are what you eat.
Kira.
I love that.
So I do a podcast called Supergirl Radio, and one of our segments is Lena Luthor, Boardroom or Ballroom, because her outfit.
She looks like a boss in this coat.
Nasty Luthor like a different Luthor? It's not just Lena being mean?
No.
Helen Slater here. It's so fun to know that you're hosting a podcast called Supergirl Radio.
Yeah!